Since I'm strategic, I wasted my time in journalism. Do you think I chose the right career?
So moment of self-realization was, this is where I am not using my strengths correctly. I have a strength, but I'm using it like a weakness. If you look at a lot of marketeers actually use it. Areas of improvement is overrated. Looking at strengths is underrated. And my top 5 strengths are achiever, analytical, connectedness. Chances of 2 people having similar strength exactly in the same order are 1 in 33 million.
Which has been your toughest case?
Now the next phase of growth comes when you start building your team. Changes obviously happen in balance sheet and the business outcome, and we have done this with a lot of family-owned companies also.
How long does change actually take to come?
So the youngest I've worked with, biggest change is accepting self the way they are. If this data is available to your colleagues, they will understand your day-to-day behavior.
I hope some future HR professional is listening to you. So great. On Storytellers today, we have with us Abhishek Joshhi. He is the founder of a company called Strengths Masters. His aim is to help organizations, teams, and individuals find their strength using a scientific process. Abhishek, tell me now, you use the late Don Clifton's movement of strengths. You started this company based on this. How did you find it? Why did you love his philosophy?
Thank you, Ambika. So I have worked in corporate before I started my own company. And I was responsible for designing leadership development program, learning and development program, behavioral development program for managers and leaders. And I would have listened to 100 and 200 plus organizations who used to come and tell me that, okay, this is how you can build capability of your leaders. Everyone talked about that there is something wrong and we can fix it. But no one came to me with the thought that, okay, there is something good in people and you can also help them find out and apply themselves in their role scientifically. When I got to know about this aspect of life, when I did research and found out that there is something called strength science exists, and there is a reliable, valid process which late Don Clifton has designed, and it is like a movement which is impacting so many people's lives, so many organizations. I was really fascinated by that. I thought of doing it myself first and then offering it to the leaders within my organization. When I offered a leadership development program, designed this based on strength science, I really like that. I saw there is a lot of trust which increased among people. People start accepting each other the way they are. They started working together more cohesively in a collaborative manner. And the outcome was productivity, happiness, reduction in attrition rates. And that's how, this process fascinated me quite a lot. And I thought of making my career around this. And I did my own certification from Gallup USA, understood strength science in detail the way it is. That's when I started to creating this organization, Strength Masters, on taking ahead this movement of strengths started by late Don Clifton.
So you quit your 12-year career in the corporate world and you went to study. So what during your educational process made you realize that you have the strengths to help other people?
Yeah, so when I discovered my top 5 strengths, and my top 5 strengths are achiever, analytical, connectedness, related, and individualization. I studied, because there's a rigorous certification process. We have to go through classroom training, then pass an examination where 90% marks are required. So it's a very rigorous process. So during this process, I realized that there are certain things which I am not aware about, but there are certain things I am aware about and I'm not using correctly. So for example, my number 1 strength is achiever. I used to work really, really hard when I was working in my job. And I used to always volunteer, push myself for new projects. So for example, for me, I never thought of, settling down by doing what I'm doing. I always would ask, for new projects. Even if I'm not working, weekends, used to be really, really busy for me. When I discovered that I have a strength called achiever, I got this self-assurance that I enjoy being in this, stress environment where I can push myself and discover my own potential. So this was a good discovery. Second, I have a strength called analytical. So I am an analytical person. So before discovering that this is my strength, I was actually using it like a weakness. What happened, I used to analyze quite a lot about every situation, and it used to hamper my personal decision-making process. So when I discovered that this is my strength, and if I back my intuition, the data points that I gather without over-analyzing, I can push myself and achieve quite a lot. So this entire process of backing yourself really, really helped me during the entire process. I also got to know very clearly that if ever I have to start something of my own, what kind of support system will I be required? because there are certain things I can do really well, and these are my natural strengths, but there are certain strengths which I can't acquire naturally. So therefore, I will require people who I can rely on and I can trust them, and they can complement me in whatever I'm doing. And this process really helped me do that.
All right. You have helped over 100 companies and individuals so far,
Yeah.
which has been your most rewarding case study.
So there are many case studies. So for example, let's say there is an organization and I worked, this is a technology company, and the team was already established. They were going through a transformation. People in their organization were not collaborating well. There were silos in the organization. For the transformation, it was really required that all of them come together and go towards their transformation successfully and together. So during this time, the CEO of the organization had an idea about strength science. So we connected somehow, and during this process we discussed, and we gave him more information about how, just looking at strengths of individual, how can you increase collaboration within team, how can you establish trust within your team, how can you help people apply strengths in 4 domains of their roles. These 4 domains are execution, relationship building, influencing, and strategic thinking. And how, by just simply accepting the way people are, people can come together and work. In this case study, there are, of course, tangible outcomes in terms of, successful transformation, productivity increase, reduction in attrition. These are tangible outcomes. But the intangible, which I give, more weightage, is this fact that differences are advantages. This thought very well gets established in the organization. So when, after implementing this entire program, entire process, when leaders look at each other, they look at that, okay, this is what I have, I can contribute in the organization in this way. This is how I can leverage my colleagues' potential, my colleagues' help in getting things done. So if you look at the overall trust, empathy towards understanding each other the way they are, acceptance of other people, this increased. And this is, when I say this, they look very simple, but very difficult to achieve these intangible elements in any organization. People often focus on tangible outcomes like productivity. Definitely, when we implemented this, we got these outcomes. But more importantly, we saw increase in trust, acceptance the way people are, and working towards one common cause successfully.
Take us through the example of an individual who benefited from your study.
Yeah. So let's say there are multiple individuals I have worked with. So for example, let me take out a case study of an entrepreneur. And this entrepreneur started a company, raised funds, was doing really well. Now the next phase of growth comes when you start building your team. And building your team is as difficult or more difficult than building a product and raising funds. During this time, what was happening, that because this entrepreneur's transition was happening from an individual contributor who had an idea, started a company, and now they were getting new people together. The easiest data point which we suggest to them to build a team is looking at top 5 strengths of their team members. So people often look at performance data, other skills, competence. Very good, we can always look at that. But in this case, we said, okay, why don't you look at the simplest data available to you, which is looking at what people's natural strengths are. And this fact helped him align with the entire team together. It led, openness in the day-to-day discussion that had. And people, while they were working in chaos and driving a lot of things, they could understand each other really well. So for example, let's say the founder had one strength called responsibility. So people who have a strength called responsibility, they are the one, they take psychological ownership of doing things. So he was like, taking ownership. So the point was that I can take so much ownership, why can't others? So this understanding that everyone is different, and how different, chances of 2 people having similar strength exactly in the same order are 1 in 33 million. So when you look at that, okay, people are different, but they can also do the same thing which I'm doing by applying themselves. So for this organization, the founder was able to give space to people and allow them to apply the way they are. And that happened because the data point about each and every individual, which was their top 5 strength, was easily available. We also created something called strength DNA of the organization, where we help the founder and the entire team understand that, okay, this is what your strengths DNA look like. So you may focus a lot on areas of improvement, but this is something which is simplest data and give you a lot of benefits to you, and you can help drive growth, productivity, and achieve a lot by using this simple data point. So that was, something which is very fascinating.
Which has been your toughest case when somebody had dreams or aspirations which were not in sync with their strengths, and what do you tell them? How do they channel themselves differently? What has been the most challenging case for you?
Yeah, so people have a lot of dilemmas, So one case for me was an interesting case study, So there was a senior leader in an organization, and he was working really, really well. And we found out that one of the Clifton strength of this individual is deliberative. People who have deliberative as a strength, they are the ones they are very meticulous. They can find out what could go wrong really, really well, much before others have anticipated. And this aspect helps them quite a lot in saving their organization in going something wrong. But let's say this was one aspect which was really helpful for when this individual was working with the senior stakeholders. And the challenge that senior stakeholders articulated to us about this individual was that, okay, this person is really, really good. We are getting a lot of good value add. But what happens, there's a lot of attrition in his team. People don't stick to with this individual. They don't want to work with this individual. Find out what is wrong with them, and if you can just help him deal with this. So when we started working with this individual, we understood that this individual is deliberative and is not using strengths correctly. There is a concept called basement of balcony of strengths. Basement means you have a strength and nothing but your strength is becoming an impediment for you in various situations. Balcony means you have a strength and you are using it for your advantage. You are using it as a complementary behavior. So we realized that while this individual was working with senior stakeholder, was using strength correctly because the job was to find out and tell them what could go wrong. But when this individual was working with the team, every time he would find out some fault, even before they started their presentation. Now the morale of team was absolutely down. And we helped him identify this situation. Initially, he was reluctant to believe, but when we did this assessment, did the entire process, we helped him found out that, okay, this is where it is going wrong. Then we became good friends and he said, okay, why don't you also come and talk to my family members about me? And then we went to his place. He invited me for dinner. I asked his son, what do you do when dad comes home? I don't meet him for 15 minutes. Why? Because he's deliberative, he keeps finding fault. So this was actually a moment of realization, right? And this was initially from a person who was not believing. He was completely data-oriented person and always believed that this style is the right style of leading self, leading others. So moment of self-realization was, this is where I am not using my strengths correctly. I have a strength, but I'm using it like a weakness.
You also help parents and children identify their strengths and how they can collaborate and work together. That makes a lot of sense, at least in the North Indian scenario where there's so many family businesses where parents and children work together. So give us an example how you sorted out the family drama somewhere.
I think it's a good question because this happens, specifically when you talk about family businesses, and data says that there are very few family-owned businesses which continue their legacy for a long term. And this is not my own research, and the data around us tells us about this. But what happens, when we look at strengths and when we apply, and we have done this with a lot of family-owned companies also, because when one generation started business, now this business is getting transferred to the other generation. So one aspect of transferring is the business processes. Second aspect is human beings who were running the business the way they were. So when the new generation comes, they understand the processes of the previous generation. But at the same time, there is a understanding gap about each other in these two generations, about understanding them as human beings. And they know each other, because they are from the same family, so they understand each other. But what happens when it comes to working together, individual strengths, how the new generation or the founder from new generation is applying strengths in daily life, how this person uses personal strengths in execution, how this person uses strengths in strategic thinking, relationship building, influencing. So when we bring them together, we say that, okay, this is how we present data points to them. We say, okay, these are your strengths, these are your strengths. This is how you can complement together and build this business and take it to the next level. But if you don't understand these things, what will happen? One person will try to drive the other person and will try to convince other, or will get convinced. The full potential of the business or the individuals who are running business will never come out. And more importantly, you will understand each other, but you will not understand each other from the point of view of data points. So when we work with them, we create, DNA of the strengths.
Give us an example, because I'm sure it's such a sensitive situation because I've seen so many people where the parents have an ego, the fathers have an ego, the son or the daughter have an ego, and then at some families they kind of include the in-laws as well, and then it's like full blown Suraj Bhar Jatiya movie. So take us through a complicated scenario in that, and how did you kind of find a solution?
Yeah, so we worked with an organization where it was a family business, a family-run business. So when we discovered these trends, we found that the founder, main person who was running the business, started this business, had a strength called focus.
Yeah.
So people who have focus as a strength, they are the ones when they decide that, okay, point A to point B, they don't deviate in between. And they do not deviate at all, even if someone is coming and saying that, hey, there's a shortcut, you can do this. When this person was working with other individuals in the team, someone has a strength called communication. So communication, people who have communication, they like to express their point of views, share quite a lot. They are really genuinely good storytellers. They want to express their point of view. They don't hesitate putting across their point of view. Because of this aspect, there was a clash that was happening in two core founders. Focus, I have decided this, I will do it this way. Communication, I want to understand your perspective. I want to know why you want to do this. No, I don't want to listen to you. So if you look at this scenario, this itself is a complicated scenario to deal with. When we worked with them, we said, okay, you have a strength called focus. Focus means you decide a path and you don't listen to anyone then. Even if someone is trying to give you a good idea, you don't listen. And that's something you have a strength, but you are not utilizing it correctly. It is actually working against you.
It becomes your basement.
It becomes your basement, actually. Yeah, absolutely. It becomes your basement. Similarly, the individual who, in the family, who had a strength called communication, this person would actually deviate from topic quite often. Because communication, you can communicate, you can storytell, you can pick up one topic and take it to the next level. But the other person has a strength called focus. So if you look at, you understand this clash.
Yeah, so they get annoyed with extra random information.
Yeah. So when they understood each other's way of working. So for example, someone who has focus will always have a plan and will be very focused in achieving that plan. So the other person who does not have focus as a strength will understand that, okay, this person is different. And therefore, first I will also have to understand the plan which is created by this individual, and then I can actually communicate, talk my stuff, and convince. And I also have to be very focused during this conversation. I can tell stories, but around this topic, I need to be more prepared when I am communicating because I know that the other person is focused. And this small understanding of each other led to good camaraderie, good team dynamics.
How long does change like this come about? Because they've been living with each other forever and working together, probably hate each other. So how long does change actually take to come?
So in cases, it also happened instantly. Reason is because they are not believing in what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not about what is my experience. They are believing, they look at a study, science, data. So often people, when they look at data, and the way we work with them is we never prescribe that this is your strength and you should do this, because it doesn't work like that. So it is very non-threatening. We help them understand their strengths, understand them whether they relate with this or not, understand nuances, why they don't relate with certain aspects, give them clarity. And this happens at times instantly. At times it may take 3 to 4 discussions where we bring them together, give them such situations to reflect upon, come back to us with some nuances, ask questions. So it may take 2-3 months also. But the sense of realization starts happening the moment you start understanding and looking at your strengths, because the process is based on science. It is not about how good I am in analyzing these strengths. It is the science which is created by Clifton. That's accurate.
So when did you start this company and what's the roadmap ahead?
So I started this company in 2016. I started working in 2016. Then 2019, we registered this company because that is when I got, after completing my certification, when I quit my job, I started getting good response from the market. I realized that there's a lot of need of this subject. People are not aware about this subject because areas of improvement is overrated and looking at strengths is underrated. If you look at in our education system also, looking at what is right with you is underrated. Everyone is running towards improving something, becoming something else. So then when I started talking about this subject in 2016, it took me 3 years to get some confidence, have some clients, get some success stories. 2019 I registered and I thought, okay, why not take this movement ahead? And I created a community of strength science practitioners, and it's been from 2019 to 2024 now. And we have worked with 100+ organizations. And the goal is to expand this For me, it's not like a business because it's a practice. It is more like, taking this like a movement ahead, empowering as many people as I can with my team to help them understand their strengths, empowering individuals, organizations, teams in understanding each other, building, a culture of acceptance within the organization, enhancing trust, not just based on what I'm saying, based on looking at some data, insights about individuals, and leveraging the simplest data point which is available to people is very fundamental. What is their strengths?
Um, and how long does it take from the time you kind of sign up with an organization or an individual and you find their strengths and changes start happening and miracles start happening in their lives?
So
and
changes, yeah,
profession?
absolutely. So first is the first change, the biggest change, and often this change is not valued that much when we work with leaders. So for example, let's say if I'm working with leaders, they are the ones who have experience of life, and if they are in the leadership team in an organization, that means they have done something right and they are there. So when we do this exercise with them in the first go itself, biggest change is accepting self the way they are and accepting others the way they are. When they see different people sitting in this room have different kind of strengths and they all have done well in their life and sitting together in this workshop and talking about their strength, that's how I apply myself. So this is the biggest change, and it is very underrated. People don't value self-acceptance. And in leadership teams, if they start accepting something, they don't need a lot of guidance and prescription from outside what to do. They have knowledge, wisdom, understanding of how to change themselves. That happens instantly. They start interacting with their team members, telling them about, these are my strengths, and making sure that people accept them the way they are. And the reflection, the changes obviously happen in balance sheet and the business outcome, but the changes happens in the boardroom discussions. The way they fight themselves with each other, the way they express openness to each other's idea, the way they leverage each other. In fact, there is an example that I have, in one of the organizations where they hired a chief transformation officer for transformation. CEO hired this individual, and a chief transformation officer came and started attending all the meetings initially. After 3 months, people stopped inviting him for meeting and were not open to his ideas. And everyone was puzzled. So CEO again had an idea about strengths science, and he said, okay, can we do something about, look at this. We again found that this individual has a strength called deliberative. So what was he doing in the meetings initially when he was invited? He was actually finding faults. And people were looking at, because no one looks at our intent when we ask questions. People look at that, okay, why this person is so pinpointed asking questions to us. So when we did this exercise with the entire group, we brought them together and said that, hey, you have a colleague who can naturally find out what could go wrong. And so don't label this individual as, passive or negative. Look at that, how this individual can add value. After that, the smallest but really, really meaningful change that happened, that before anyone came to present their review presentation to the CEO, they all started going to this individual, say that, why don't you just look at it once?
Yeah.
Maybe you will find out something which will help us. So if you look at this is a big change, because you start trusting your colleagues, you start, demonstrating openness. This is openness in real sense, not having open door policies and saying that this is openness. Openness is when you understand people, when you are able to accept them the way they are in the organization and work together and apply yourself.
What is the youngest person you worked with this study?
So the youngest I've worked with, someone who's 10-year-old, because at that stage there's a process called explorer, and that is the time when we explore in which area this individual's strengths could be developed, and that is where I worked. And then my own daughter, she's 15-year-old, so I worked with her. I looked at her strengths, and so my acceptance about the way my daughter is really, really deep. It's I understand her the way she is, and I also help her, nurture her in the direction in which she wants to take. Yeah.
So at 15, you can pretty much, a child also knows what they like and what they don't. But at 10, which is a harder age to articulate, the explorer stage, how did you help this person?
So at 10, because you are still at an explorer stage. So we don't say that, okay, you have formed your strengths.
Yeah.
You're just, exploring. There are a couple of things, 2-3 themes around which you can explore well. Once you get that idea, we recommend that, okay, why don't you discuss with teachers and also take validation from them that, okay, is this individual naturally exploring these aspects when in school? If that is the case, then it is quite sure that these are the areas where a child will enjoy exploring more. So you can save your time.
Give us an example.
We recently did one assessment of a child, a 10-year-old, we found that the themes are caring, relationship building, and exploring. And then first is that, I gave this information to the parents. I said, okay, this is how it is. What do you think? Why don't you also look at this, and why don't you have a discussion with teacher and also ask her or him that, okay, is this the right areas identified? Validate, don't just trust what I'm giving. In that process, they reached out to the school teacher, and they also found that teacher also assured that, yeah, these are the areas. So for example, they say one theme was caring. So this, when we suggested to parents that, okay, because caring is this child's natural theme, so this child can be naturally be given exposure to, let's say, social organizations, maybe hospitals, where the theme is caring, or can be pointed as, buddy of a kid, and this child will naturally enjoy doing these things. So that's how, you explore people and their various dimensions in there.
I did your study as well. If you could quickly tell me, after noticing my strengths, do you think I chose the right career, or is a better career option waiting for me out there, where I can apply my strengths and maybe reach the top?
Right. So, Ambika, knowing about your strengths, what I discovered that you are a very free-flowing person, and your number one strength is strategic. So that means that you don't get stuck. You are a solution-oriented person. We also discovered that you have a strength called positivity. So
I think since I'm strategic, I wasted my time in journalism, and I should have aimed at being a CEO instead somewhere.
So strategic in this sense means that people who have strategic as a strength, they are the ones who can create alternatives in any situation. So for example, let's say, I don't know, you can tell me better. You can reflect on your life and say that, okay, wherever you get stuck, you instantly find out a solution. It could be as simple as that, getting stuck in the traffic signal. Your first reaction could be that, okay, what is the way out of?
I do that. I get out of the car.
Yeah.
And I walk.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's how. So career option is something which people often decide based on the knowledge and their inclination is. But one aspect is that whichever career they decide, so for example, they can be an entrepreneur, they can be an independent professional like you, they can do a job somewhere. It gives them assurance that how will they apply themselves when they are doing it. And of course, if they also apply their strengths in selecting their career, they will have more job satisfaction. So for example, let's say someone who has a strength called context will always look at why about everything. So therefore, if they get into jobs where a lot of history is involved, data is involved, they will naturally enjoy themselves really, really well. But it's okay, even if they are not in those jobs, they can apply themselves really, really well by knowing about themselves. So for example, let's say one of your strengths is positivity. So you are a very positive person, generally also, you have a positive outlook about life. A lot of us do not have, like I do not have positivity in my top 5. So my first reaction to anything is not very positive. I look at facts. My strengths are achiever, analytical. So I look at data, fact. Why did this happen? How can I analyze this situation? But in your case, you have a strategic as your strength. So therefore, you are looking at solutions. So when I get stuck in traffic signal, I don't look at a solution instantly. My first reaction is, why did this happen? Did I do anything wrong? So these are small nuances which can actually help us in deal with small things that we do in our life. Similarly, in your profession, so whatever you are doing and whatever you will do in future, one thing is sure, that you will always be a solution-oriented person. So let's say if I am your colleague, I'm working with you. If I know your strengths, I can trust you. If I get stuck somewhere, and I will have to come to you for solutions. So for example, let's say I know very clearly that if I have to assign a project to you, you will be very positive in listening to that project idea. Many times, when we work with colleagues, you see that, okay, people who do not have their natural strength as positivity, they are usually not very positive about things, So for example, in my case, I have my strength called analytical. So when any new project comes to me, I look at, okay, what is the relevance to this project? Why this project? But someone like you who has a positivity as a strength will always look at positive aspects of things. Another strength that you have called responsibility. So you are the one who psychological take ownership of doing things. People who have responsibility, they don't work for credit, they work for credibility. Now, if this data is available to your colleagues, they will understand your day-to-day behavior. And a lot of clashes that happen in the organization, they may not happen. And you will be able to help people, drive people, because you take responsibility of making sure that everything is going correctly. I
hope some future HR professional is listening to you. So great. Yes. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And tell me a bit about, you were telling me how you use the study with your daughter who's 15 years old.
Yeah.
Tell me, how did it help her, keeping in mind her strengths, and how did it help you as a parent?
Yeah. So my daughter, her interests are writing, creative field. This is something which she's really interested in. And last year, she also published her own collection of poetry, and she is doing it genuinely. And because when I was going out with her on weekends, I always used to find that she's someone who spends a lot of time in libraries, bookstores, than going to any other field. Whenever we go to any family holiday, there also, she would be more interested in places where there is some historical relevance. So, for example, even if we go to, let's say, a place like UAE, she would be interested more in exploring the history of UAE than going to Burj Khalifa or other places.
The mall. That should be very good for you as a parent.
Yeah, that way, in a way, it is really, really good also. Yeah. So then, when I discovered her strength, I found that one of her strengths is context, and second strength is intellection. Now, my assurance about her that she is interested genuinely in exploring the historical aspects. So, if I look at, if I have to naturally guide her, I can tell her very clearly. And I don't even have to guide her. I just shared this with her, and she also, understood that this is something which is very natural, and therefore this confidence that as a father and daughter that we have, that okay, these are the decisions that you take, and these are right decisions because you know yourself really, really well, and you know where you are going. So let's say in future she wants to become a professor, and this is something which I have never shared with her.
Right.
And because she is interested in history, she wants to explore a lot of things. She wants to go in depth, and this is how she has been able to identify a clear career path for her, right in the early age, and she's enjoying herself. I don't know where will she reach. That's something which only time will tell. But I think she is enjoying herself really, really well, and she is happy. So that's something which I look at a very important indicator in a child. When a child is, let's say, in class 9th and 10th, in teenage, where there is a lot of confusion about what should I do about my career. So this helped her in pursuing her, backing herself the way she is confidently. And as parents, to me and my wife, this actually increased bond with each other.
Going back to late Don Clifton, tell us a bit about him, his life. Where did the study take him?
He's my guru, Don Clifton, when he started strength psychology.
Which year was that?
That was, during after Second World War, and he was a business person and psychologist. So when he came, he was given a task once that give feedback to a group of managers.
Right.
So he thought that, okay, why not, let me tell them something about what is right with them instead of, telling them what can they improve upon. He did research and he did not find any scientific evidence where we can use and tell very specifically what is right with people.
Right.
If I have to tell people what is wrong with them, there are good sophisticated words. There is a lot of research, psychometric analysis are prepared where we can identify what are the areas of improvement and tell very specifically. So based on this incident, he created strength science based on one question. And that question is, what will happen when we look at what is right with people and help them maximize what is right with them, rather than fixating what is wrong with them. If you look at, a lot of marketeers actually use it. When they launch their product, no product is perfect. They focus on maximizing what is there in the product. And they actually also manage the weaknesses very nicely. Similarly, after that, Don Clifton created a methodology. And then, he collaborated with an organization called Gallup, which is a premium research organization globally. And then, that's how this movement of strength came to various parts of the world. And this study this practice has been used by more than 90% Fortune 500 companies. All the new age organizations are going for this because it actually gives you very simple data point about yourself, your team, and organization. And this practice is very scientific, reliable, credible, valid, and people enjoy when they discover their strengths really, really well. So Don Clifton has a major role in whatever I am and how I am leading my life today. And he created this wonderful philosophy for all of us.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing this philosophy, Abhishek, with us on Storytellers. It was lovely talking to you.
Thank you, Ambika. Thanks a lot.
And thank you all of you for watching. See you soon.